Everybody ready? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for being here today. I know a lot of you cover various crimes throughout Albany County. I know that, first and foremost, most of you cover a lot of the crimes involving violence. But we have other crimes that are taking place in our community that are harming our community immensely. I think most of you will travel up and down the various corridors in Albany County, specifically those business rich corridors, and see a lot of store closures. Well, one of the reasons we're experiencing the number of closures that we are is because of organized retail theft. And I know many of you have heard about the concept of organized retail theft, but today we are here and happy to announce that we have arrested and indicted a very small number of people who are involved in a very large ring of organized retail theft. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Bill Andrews, 88 Andrews, who is handling a number of our organized retail theft crimes, among other white-collar crimes. But I want to delve into specifically organized retail theft, the arraignments that we had here today, the arraignment of Zamaria Williams, the arraignment of Winter Vandross, and there is also one other individual who was not here today that we will be looking for and pursuing her. These three young ladies account for over $78,000 worth of stolen merchandise from just three stores. Each of them are charged with multiple counts of D felonies, and I will say that the dollar figure of $78,000 was arrived at in just 3 short months. Now, many of you know, and many of you who've heard of organized retail theft, know that it involves people who go into stores, very specific stores, and they secure very specific merchandise that will then be provided into the black market, and from the black market, profits are gained. Now, this is an investigation that focuses on all aspects of organized retail theft. Today, we're here specifically to talk about these arraignments. Now, the three stores that are named in the indictment specifically are Kohl's, LensCrafter, and Ulta. There are a number of other stores, and we're hoping that by your broadcast of this event today, there are a number of other stores that we are encouraging to contact law enforcement and to get your documents, your materials together, and be prepared to engage with our office. I will also say this as a byproduct of what we're talking about here in terms of organized retail theft. A lot of the reasons that we see such an increase in organized retail theft is because when our legislators decided that they were going to reform a lot of our criminal justice statutes, one of the things that they did was that they listed petty larcenies amongst the class of crimes for which a judge cannot set bail. And what we have here are individuals who continue to be apprehended by law enforcement, who continue to avoid returning to court. We're talking about individuals, while remaining free, continue to steal from stores all across the Capital District. So it's not just an Albany County issue, it's an issue that exists amongst all of the very robust, retail-rich corridors that we have here in the Capital District. The individuals have been charged with multiple D felony counts, with 2 in a third to 7 years if successfully convicted. We are asking the public, we are asking members of the loss prevention and retail community to reach out to their local law enforcement after today And we're going to be sending out information in the not too distant future about a larger meeting to discuss the targets that we do have in common. This was wonderful work done by the Colony Police Department along with Mr. Andrews in being very organized and being very detail oriented, and using these aggregate figures to get us to where it is that we got today, which was the successful indictment and arraignment of at least 2 out of the 3 defendants. And with that, I will take your questions.
David, how were you able to zero in on these particular individuals?
Well, these individuals have made quite a reputation for themselves. If you were to look at the not only volume of materials that they were stealing, also the frequency of which they were engaged in this behavior. So I have, within a 4-week period, at least 4 stores that were hit by one individual.
Is it safe to say that there might be some retailers out there who have been hit who might not realize it?
Oh, I believe that they realize it. We were in a meeting earlier this week when we were speaking to loss prevention specialists, specifically from one of our larger supermarkets here, who quoted a loss, or as they refer to it, a shrinkage of over $300,000 in a month's time.
But they realize that after the fact, these people are rarely caught in the act. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, they're caught in the act. However, anyone who understands the concept of bail reform understands that when they are apprehended and law enforcement will retrieve them from the premises, especially if they're being held there, they go to court and then they're released again, and they go back within weeks to the same stores.
Soares, we saw a robbery at the Dick's House of Sport. Does this have any connection to those cases?
No, this is a separate item altogether.
Do you know if that third female will be identified?
She will be as soon as she's picked up.
So do they just put it in a shopping cart? Do they stuff it in a bag? How do they get out of the store?
Some of them are brazen enough to just walk in, grab a pile of clothes, and walk right out.
And are store employees typically told to let them go, or would you recommend they try to apprehend them?
Each of the retailers have their own unique policies. Some of them are no-touch, and if it's a no-touch store, then that individual is photographed, and all of the things that can be done are done, and a report is filled out, and law enforcement will then retrieve that material, and they will begin to conduct their investigations.
Does some of the evidence you have against these particular defendants include store surveillance video?
Absolutely.
Is that anything that you would be sharing with the public, with the media?
Well, as soon as these cases are, in discovery is done, and you could seek that opportunity at that point.
And you mentioned earlier that all too often defendants like this are just let back out on the streets. Is that the case with these individuals this morning?
Oh my goodness, yes. As a matter of fact, there's 2 problems here with the bail reform as it relates to especially these larceny cases. The first problem is if a person fails to appear, court is not going to issue an arrest warrant immediately. Court is going to then, make attempts to contact them again. And sometimes they contact them twice before they issue a warrant. Sometimes they contact them 3 times. The problem, however, is that you're talking about an average of 6 weeks. So from the date that you don't show, your case is going to be moved up 2 weeks, and then if you don't show again, the case is going to be moved up 2 weeks. So we're talking about an average of 6 weeks. And how much damage are these people doing in 6 weeks? Whether it's here in Albany County, whether it's in Clifton Park, or whether it's in Rensselaer County, we have all of the law enforcement contact. It is immense. It is immense.
I'm not so sure you elaborated on what they're doing with this merchandise once they leave the stores.
Well, there is an underground market, a black economy, that all of this material is being provided to. So whether it's a local store that's accepting merchandise, when I say local store, some of our bodegas are receiving that merchandise. Some of this merchandise is then being put on Facebook Marketplace. Some of this merchandise is being fenced through Craigslist. It's an elaborate scheme, but not all too difficult.
So if I hear you correctly, there are accomplices. Are you pursuing those accomplices, the bodega owners?
I will say this is a very small part of our case. What we're doing here, and the purpose of us in having this engagement, is so that we hope that a lot of loss prevention specialists throughout Albany County are paying attention to the news today. And the cases that you thought were just sitting there gathering dust, I hope that this press conference will reinvigorate the efforts that they've made to seek justice and continue to pursue these people.
What do you think? I'm sorry.
But are you working to crack down on the third-party sellers then?
That is part of an ongoing investigation. We are the entire continuum of individuals who are recruited, those individuals who are doing the recruitment, the individuals who are engaged in the activity, the individuals who stand to profit once the activity has taken place, all the way down to the persons who ultimately knowingly possess stolen merchandise.
Would a store employee be guilty of any crime if they were to hold on to these individuals like this as they fled a store?
Oh, no. The individual stores and their loss prevention philosophy is up to the individual retailer. We have retailers that are hands-on, and we have retailers that are hands-off. And the police response to a hands-on, hands-off are very different. If it is a hands-off, retailer, the police will eventually get to the retailer to collect a report and all the materials that they have. If it's a hands-on retailer, the police are there within minutes.
What relationship is there between the two people who have been arraigned and the third person? Are they friends, acquaintances? Are they relatives?
All acquaintances.
You mentioned that this has, it's not just here in Albany County, they've targeted other stores. Does this mean that other counties are conducting similar investigations, and is this something that the FBI or other agencies would get involved in?
I don't know if other counties are. I know that there is a real interest on our county establishing a collaborative effort with other counties so that we're seeking relief. I'll tell you this, I know that there is a sentiment out there, because when you hear of Walmart, or you hear of Target, or you hear of these big box stores. I didn't mention any big box stores here. These are smaller lens crafters, businesses, but big chains. I know that there is a sentiment out there that, they can write off the shrinkage. Well, who do you think the losses are being passed down to? They're being passed down to us. There is going to come a reckoning in our county when people finally start to take notice that the number of businesses that were open and viable prior to these reforms are no longer in existence, and that's going to hurt us in our sales tax revenue. So this issue isn't just about holding individuals accountable. It isn't about seeking justice for the stock market winners in the form of big box stores. This is about alleviating a lot of those penalties that eventually we end up paying for. Those of us who have to fork over an additional 15 cents, 30 cents on materials that we use every day.
I think in court this morning, Mr. Andrews was speaking to the judge about setting bail, assessing the flight risk of these defendants, and I'm wondering if that's a source of frustration for people in your department, or if you think these people are just laughing at prosecutors in the system because they are able to get back out on the street.
What has happened is the New York State legislature and the leadership of New York State has basically taken all the risk out of certain crimes. And in this instance, to have individuals continue to go day after day, 4 times in a month, hitting the same store, that speaks of a specific arrogance and flagrancy of the law, but a deeper understanding of the fact that the line that we as a society have drawn about what is acceptable and is not acceptable, it's an example that line has been moved, and now people can engage, with reckless abandonment because the risk is not there. We didn't have a lot of these problems and the frequency of these problems before bail reform. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, stay tuned. Stay tuned. There's a lot more coming.
Sure, I have an off topic real quick.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you'd be able to address it, but Peregrine Senior Living Nursing Home in Northern Boulevard, it's the site of 5 deaths from Legionella. I know there's an investigation going on with the Department of Health. Is that something that would rise to a level of concern for the DA's office as a possible criminal investigation to any wrongdoing there?
Well, I think anytime there's something impacting our community, there's always going to be interest. Should whatever those issues are rise to the level of criminal liability. So yeah, that's an issue that is of concern to us. We also are very confident in the fact that the people who are involved in looking into these matters are going to do the best job, and they'll make that assessment.
David, what's the next shoe to drop in the Baby Moses case?
Well, we have a scheduled appearance. I believe it's the 25th or 24th here in the county, and so that's really the next appearance. And that's it.
No questions about the Cowboys?
They said the total was $78,000 in court. The $50,000 was mentioned.
Yes, we mentioned the 50 when you actually do the math, because we're talking about over 50 just for purposes of the section that it was charged under. But when you do the math, that's the dollar figure that we have today. Now, I also want to reiterate that there are a number of other retailers who have not yet forwarded their materials and been in touch with law enforcement, but we also know specifically that these individuals were involved in those offenses. So that number is going to change, hopefully today after your broadcast.
Is there any particular reason they're hitting these certain stores?
Well, if for example, I think all of us are familiar with the fact that historically, it's always been baby formula and razor blades that stores used to lock up, right? Because those two items, the liquidity on the street for those two items were great. So those were the items that were very specifically targeted. Well, now it's everything and anything, right? And so beauty supplies, other materials, they're very specific about what they take. It's not a random, it's whatever it is that has a resale value on the street or on the internet that is the focus.
I know I was in Walmart recently, and there was underwear and undershirts and socks that were behind a locked glass door.
Yeah, so it's interesting that it started out, again with the baby formula as well as razor blades. I have no need for shampoo, as someone reminded me of that today. But now you're seeing shampoo, you're seeing toothpaste, you're seeing a variety of materials, and I don't think you can actually go to a big box store like Lowe's or Home Depot and actually walk out with a drill anymore. I think so many of the products that were historically been involved with, just being able to pick up and walk out. You can't do that anymore. So, the reforms have had impacts all across the public safety continuum, right? You see the increase, and I know most of you are always here with respect to shootings or other acts of violence that occur. So as you're here in the city, it's mostly shootings. It's a lot of the violence. But as you go outside into the suburbs, people are experiencing frustration. because what used to take 15 minutes at the store now takes, 35 minutes, having to wait for someone with a key to come in and unlock something that you haven't really committed yourself to buying yet. But I think this is all, it's all related. It comes back to what were we thinking? And it comes back to the need for having to go back to the drawing board and change this.
I have a question about the lens grabs.
No, you're not forget.
Typically, when you buy glasses, they have like the display glasses in the retail part. Then you want to buy them, they get like a fresh pair from the back. So when you're getting to these, multi-$1,000 amounts going from lens crafters, were these people allegedly going in just grabbing them off the glasses off the shelves, or how were they? Were these floor models, or how are you arriving at that figure for the glasses particularly?
Well, there's in our paperwork we have an itemized figures from the stores, and we're talking about high brand, Prada. I'm 55, so I don't know what. I still think Procad's a thing, but it's all of the higher value frames, and we're not going to get into the very specifics of because I don't want to give away information to allow for other people to go. Yeah, that adds up very, very, very quickly when you're talking about Prada and other unpronounceable brand names that I can't do it.
When you talk about bail reform, do you have concrete evidence that you can point to that says individuals who await trial in their communities are more likely to be rearrested?
So when I talk about bail reform, I look at, and by the way, I'm not going to show you the document because I'm not supposed, this is law enforcement only. When I talk about bail reform, I'm talking about, here is, 4 offenses. Here is 20 some odd more offenses. I'll show you my personal favorite when you can get to, at least 2 full pages of offenses. And by the way, these are very young people. So we have an offense on 513, on 518, 529, 2 on 529, 610, 611, 612, 614. So when you're speaking about the volume of incidents that we have, and knowing as a practitioner who's been here for 20 plus years that, back in the day, someone who's stealing something out of a store, you're not going to go to jail. You're going to be arraigned, and you're going to be, the public defender will be appointed to you. You'll come back, and we start to work out the cases. If you were out and you committed another crime, well, then we're really going to put this case on a fast track, and chances are that second offense, a judge would remand you because you committed a crime while you were pending the outcome of another crime. So, in this instance, when judges are now prohibited from setting bail the first time, and when you don't come back in 2 weeks, and the judge is going to try to make contact again with you to schedule an appearance, and that contact is, another 2 weeks. So we're talking 4 now, right? And the triggering event is the third time. It's 6 weeks. And if you look at the crimes that are committed within the window of 6 weeks, there's nothing other than bail reform that you can point to. It's just not possible, because if they were in, they wouldn't be committing these new crimes.
So you have evidence you can point to specifically that says individuals who are awaiting trial in the community versus behind, they're more likely to be rearrested? Because I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 pages of crimes. There's 2 pages of crimes that, but for the fact that they were released as a result of bail reform, would not have occurred. And
we have time for one more.
And the thing and what's really bad here is the fact that, that first time that you're involved with the criminal justice system, that first time is the intervention. That should be the thing that wakes people up and says, "Oh my goodness!" Oh, but when there's no consequence for it, and you're back out on the street and you're committing, 40 offenses within, 5 months. You're coming back, and it's not going to be, oh my goodness. I think probation is going to be, a viable offer for you. You've already graduated to a D felony.
One more?
Yeah, so then would you just urge a judge to thumb his or her nose at these laws and say, I don't care what I can or can't do, you're going to jail, and that's that?
I wouldn't be urging anyone to violate the laws. I would urge the judges to join me in continuing to demand change, because we have stores that are closing at a record pace, and what is frustrating is if you look nationally, and you see, Target announcing that they're closing their stores. Well, where do you think they're closing their stores? They're closing their stores in predominantly black communities, right? And okay, so Target's not going to suffer because they're going to open up somewhere else and they're going to have a lot of money. But what happens to all of those people who work there from the community, right? So this isn't an issue just